City Skylines 2 just got updated. However, this patch was supposed to come out alongside the now twice delayed Bridges and Ports DLC. So that begs the question, is this a meaningful update or not without the DLC? In this video, we'll deep dive into it and find out together. Without further ado, let's jump right in. Now I've got to begin by talking about the DLC. Now, if you're not aware, Bridges and Ports DLC has been delayed for a second time, this time pushed to Q4 of this year. This happened after Colossal Order and Paradox received feedback from an early access group that the DLC just wasn't ready for prime time. And honestly, I'm really happy that they decided to delay it. I think it was the right call. It shows a willingness to prioritize quality over kicking something out the door. After the game's rocky launch and the uneven months since, the first DLC really needs to be a home run. It has to be strong enough to keep current players interested in the game and compelling enough to bring people back to it. That said, I really hope that they hit their new self-imposed deadline. They've missed basically every deadline that they've set so far and shaken confidence in them because of that. As I was told back in planning school, good life advice generally is to always under-promise and over-deliver, and they'd be wise to do that. Now back to this patch, because it was originally meant to ship with the DLC, it's within the theme of that DLC. So that means that all the assets, functionality, bug fixes, and UI changes have some connection to Bridges and Ports. So let's dive into it all, starting with the new assets. And to begin, we're getting fewer assets than previous updates, but I think that they're incredibly impactful. We're getting standalone pedestrian and roadway keys, 3 new piers, and 2 new bridges. Starting with the keys, like I mentioned, these are now standalone. They do not exist in replacement of the previous functionality, but in addition to them, and they're so much better. They include a new Snap to Shore tool, which makes placement a ton easier. Somehow, Colossal Order has managed to improve the best feature in the game, the road tool. When placed in water, these new keys form flat, clean jetties. When placed on dry land, you can use them to terrace hillsides. You just have to do a little bit of creative terraforming. For the roads, there are 2 and 4 lane options, and you can add trees or grass to both sides of the road, something you can't do when you convert a normal road into a key wall. For the pedestrian keys, there are 2 variants, and it's just cosmetic. One has concrete ribbing and the other is smooth. One thing I've noticed is that unlike keying a normal road or path, visual corruptions with these seem few and far between, so it's a big improvement in that regard. But even with all that praise, there are some drawbacks. First, the elevation of the keys is based on the water level, not the terrain. While that seems good at face value, you can't exactly get the top of the keys as close to the water as I would like. A way to get them to be lower is to disable shoreline snapping, but that's the killer feature that makes using these keys so easy. Second, there's no built-in fencing or edge protection. That means that it looks like your Sims can walk straight off the keys into the water. On the plus side, you're not stuck with a fence blocking a pedestrian path or a pier that connects to the key, so I guess we have to take the good with the bad. I will admit though, this does make me really hope that roadway fences are added as a road service option someday. It'd be really great to be able to add these on where you want to. It's also worth mentioning that you can upgrade existing roads and pedestrian paths with these new key wall types, making retrofitting them into your city very simple. Moving on from keys, we're also getting 3 piers of varying widths. And I gotta be honest with you, these might be my favorite assets that have been added to the game yet. Not only do they look great, not only are they easy to use, but they also add a ton of life to your city. Sims actually walk on them and stop to admire the water. These are the kinds of small touches that the game has been missing. It's the kind of thing that makes your city really feel like it's alive. Because these are networks, I have a feeling that the community is gonna do some wild things with them. And that's because these things are basically parks. They even show up as leisure activities. You can upgrade existing elevated paths with these new piers, including on dry land. Upgrading on water is simple, but on dry land, your piers have to be at least 3.75 meters above the ground. But just imagine it, creating a marshy area, just like $2.20 recently did in the St. Andros series, and having the boardwalks go through them. That would be so beautiful. And a quick plug for $2.20 in this video in particular, he's criminally underrated, an absolute artist, and this video just blew me away. However, not everything is perfect with these. Like other networks, the lights on the piers have random colors, though thankfully, unlike the pedestrian roads for instance, they don't have random lights that spawn. I think it's clear that we're heading towards customizable network lighting someday, but we're not there yet. Now in my opinion, one of the biggest misses with the piers is that you can't place props on them, at least not in a vanilla game. It's kind of unsurprising if you think about it because networks generally can't have props, but maybe it's another reason why the game needs to chill out a bit on collision. The wide pier in particular is screaming out for tables, chairs, and vendors to liven things up a bit. At least some do spawn if your pier's large enough, but I'm guessing detailers are going to wish that they could control it themselves. Speaking of the wide pier, A bizarre choice was to use a different fence size for just that pier relative to the small and medium piers. That means that if you attach them together, the railings look broken. So if you care about aesthetics, don't link them together, and now you know. And finally, and perhaps unsurprisingly, if you connect these piers up with old road keys, you're going to run into that same fencing issue that I was talking about earlier. If you don't want to have that happen, just use some of the new keys. They're not perfect, but they're a ton better than the old ones. Moving on to bridges, there are two new ones, and both support rail. The first is the 4-lane highway double train track, double-decked, extra-dosed bridge. That's a mouthful, but it's a beautiful bridge, so I'll forgive it. And it supports cars on the upper deck and trains on the lower deck. Interestingly, you can swap out the double train track for a single one in a vanilla game, but doing that breaks the node where the bridge spans connect. Hopefully, it's fixed in the future when the DLC lands, or a mod allows you to work around that in the future, but it is a possibility, which gets me pretty excited. The second bridge is a double train track truss arch bridge. It is fantastic, and it'll probably become a signature asset in a lot of cities. Now, even with all of that praise, I still have to point one thing out. We still can't fully customize bridge networks. Ideally, a bridge would just be a shell, and we could assign tram tracks or subway tracks or even roads to those bridges. Knowing how modular the game is, I hope that this functionality is added in the future because it would open up so many design possibilities. Now that's it for new assets, so let's dive into simulation changes and UI improvements. First up, load times. Loading into the game with all region packs, all paid content, and plot the growables, I was able to reach a fully loaded in main menu 7% faster than in the previous version of the game. Now that might not sound game-changing, but things felt much more responsive while loading in, and the game seemed to be struggling a lot less. Now this is important because of what the game is actually doing during that time, processing custom assets. I'd imagine that this is an important step towards custom asset support. Kind of related to this, when I exit the game, I noticed that I no longer hang like I used to. Now we're about to load into a game, but a quick disclaimer. We're loading into a version of Segundo Beach that I created just for this video. It has a cargo harbor and an outside cargo train connection so that we can test how the simulation has improved. I created these using vanilla tools in the previous version of the game. Now, one of the first things I noticed about this new version of the game is that when you load into one of your saves, you see a blurred image of your actual city in the background. And while this doesn't impact gameplay at all, it looks a ton better, and I think it's kind of exciting because it means that now I get to neurotically try to make sure that when I save, I have the best view because I want that blurred background to be absolutely perfect. It's totally unnecessary, but I like it and it's kind of fun. Now, once you load in, there are a bunch of small UI tweaks, most of which are pretty forgettable. For example, the advisor icon has been updated and the info inside of there has been rearranged. So unless you look in there often or are a brand new player, you're probably not going to be impacted by that. But a few of these UI changes are genuinely very helpful. For example, when looking at city policies, the advanced pollution management policy now tells you that it reduces air and ground pollution by 25%, but increases garbage accumulation by 15%. That wasn't in the tooltip before, it didn't tell you what it did. This information is enough to make me consider using the policy. Now I'm very curious to know if there are other changes like this in the UI, so if you happen to stumble across some, please drop it in the comments below because I'm genuinely curious about what they are. And then we get to the things I'm a bit more dubious about. For instance, some buildings, like this cargo harbor, now display what resources have a surplus or a deficit. It's really interesting information, but as a user, what can I do with it? What does it even mean? Is it a global shortage? Is it a problem at the harbor specifically? Who's requesting it and why? Should the resource even be coming through the harbor? Is this an importing or an exporting issue? Who knows? Not enough info. And even if I happen to figure it out, what can I do with that information? You can't set import or export prices. You can't increase storage for specific goods or zone a specific manufacturing type. The UI gives you more information but not more control. The whole thing seems utterly pointless, but it doesn't have to be that way. But more on that a bit later on. You may have also noticed that fish is now a new resource available in the game. Unfortunately, there are no extractors at this point in time, so all you can do is import it. So it'd be great if you could tell your harbor to stop doing so, but that's not the kind of control that we have. City statistics are also still a mess. Segundo Beach shows a $16 trillion trade deficit after simulating for just 18 months. Fun fact, that's 16 times bigger than the US trade deficit last year. You'd think that we'd be in the poorhouse, but we're making more money than ever before. Meanwhile, the production tab shows massive surpluses in almost every category. Is this information right? Who knows? I personally feel like I can't trust any information the game is giving me about resources or finances at this point in time. That said, under the hood, things are improving. I ran a side-by-side test of the old and new builds of Segundo Beach, and here's what changed. Crime success probability doubled, which is kind of funny. Cargo and truck traffic went up by 2.5%. Cargo rail more than tripled. Ships started working, though the volume is lower than I expected. Land values rose by 7%. Industrial became significantly more profitable. Commercial profitability dropped off a cliff and then began to slowly recover. Office profitability improved slightly. Resources are now depleting significantly faster, likely because the industries are actually working. Unemployment dropped by 6%, without me making any changes to the city. 1,500 new jobs were added to the city, while 1,000 residents left. And the budget improved dramatically. I have 25% more cash and a significantly higher hourly income. These sorts of trends played out in Magnolia County when I let that run for a while as well. So yeah, good stuff for the most part. But again, none of it's really actionable because the stats are so incredibly broken. I couldn't really tell you why I'm making more money or why I was losing money before. I can't replicate my success. I can't learn from my mistakes. Things are just happening to me, which makes playing this game as a simulator rather than a city painter basically impossible. But I feel like there are signs of where they're going. Commercial buildings now show inventory, for example. When it gets low, they send out trucks to fetch goods, or at least they do in theory. I've seen it happen initially, but inventory doesn't visibly deplete, or at least I haven't noticed it. One thing I did notice is that the cargo harbor's capacity was lowered from 30,000 tons to 23,000 tons, so it feels like they're trying to balance things out a bit. That said, in Segunda Beach, it was totally irrelevant. I'd never seen more than 5 tons move through it. And in Magnolia County, it's full. Just like before the update, cargo appears to be moving through the harbor, but the storage never changes, no matter what happens. Now, one of the known issues is that there are buildings that have way too much cargo, and this just might be one of them in Magnolia County. Apparently, things will correct themselves after they deplete themselves of all the cargo, but it's impossible to see how much they have, at least without using mods. Speaking of mods, this update impacts the simulation, so expect many mods to break. Now, if you have a heavily modded build, it might take a little while before you can load in. Give the modders the space they need to get their mods updated. After all, most modders are doing this as a labor of love, and it could take them a little bit of time. They're doing this in their free time after all. Try to help out. I plan on updating the Magnolia County and Segunda Beach playsets to be fully functional. I'll also note which mods are broken, so stay tuned for that. I'll have that updated shortly after I wake up. Now, I feel like I just logged a number of complaints about the simulation, so I should also offer up some solutions. Number 1, when we make changes to the budget, it'd be great if we could see the projected impacts and how long they would take to kick in. As it stands, when you adjust taxes, it can take 6 to 12 months to see where things settle, and in the meantime, you're kind of flying blind. It'd be great if we could actually see what could happen if we were to adjust the taxes, even if it's within a range. Number 2, they need to completely rethink industrial zoning. You should be able to choose whether you're zoning manufacturing or warehousing, and you should be able to control what type of industrial you're zoning for. There's already a mod that lets you do this. Just let me do it with the vanilla game. Number 3, now that we have cargo shortage indicators, let us click on them so we can see the impacted buildings, so that we can troubleshoot the issues and solve them. And give us more tools and information so that we can do so. Is it a lack of warehousing? A traffic jam? Show us. Number 4, now that commercial and industrial buildings show us inventory, tell us how long that inventory will last and how long it will take for a delivery to get back to the building. And when we click on the building, tell us where the delivery is coming from so that we can improve the supply chain. That kind of transparency would gamify logistics and create a new gameplay challenge. It would be a great gameplay loop. It seems like they're heading in that direction, but we're not quite there yet. And maybe the biggest idea when it comes to simulation? Let buildings level down, not just up. Not every building should reach level 5, and not every building should stay there. For instance, if I build a factory in a nice neighborhood, the surrounding homes should degrade. I think that would make the game a ton more fun, it would offer a unique challenge, and it would make future simulation changes less damaging to existing saves. And even if you're a city painter, this would be a very valuable change to the game. It means that you'd have more asset variety. As it currently stands, everything will level up to level 5 over time, making the city look much more bland and much more uniform. 2 more frustrations. If you enable developer mode, achievements are now disabled, and the game tells you so. To me, this is pointless. Most PC players use at least one mod, and if they aren't, they're probably using dev mode. And in some cases, it's just to make the rain stop to eke out a bit more FPS. Disabling achievements removes one of the few goals the game actually gives us. It actively makes the game less fun, and there's even a mod to re-enable achievements anyway. So why do this? Why was this a priority? Why is disabling achievements a thing at all? Second, if you've noticed that your office employment numbers have crashed, you're not alone. The old bug where offices cap out at 5 employees is back. It's a reason why unemployment is sky high in my builds. Now you can bulldoze your offices or jack taxes up to 30% to flush out all your companies, but that's only a temporary fix. And if the current patch cadence sticks, we'll be stuck with this bug for at least another 3 months. So where does that leave us? Well, the new assets are great. The simulation is improving, but it's still vague in some ways and still quite buggy. The UI has more information than ever, but it offers very little real control in some areas, and several info views are still broken. This patch is a step forward, but it's also a reminder of how far the game still has to go, at least as it regards to the simulation. How do you feel about the update? Am I being too harsh on the simulation improvements? Do you think my suggestions would make the game better or not? Let me know in the comments below. And if you found this video helpful or at least interesting, consider hitting the like button and subscribe for more coverage like this. Or just leave an emoji for the sake of engagement. Until next time, thank you so much for taking the time to hang out with me today. There's a million things you could have been doing. You decided to hang out with me and go over this patch. And for that, I appreciate you and I appreciate your time. Thank you so much for joining me. Take care. Bye-bye.